Welcome to this week's Brittany's Bites. Today we are making one of my favorite recipes because it's that time of year, folks. It is soup season. I have many go-to recipes that I'm going to try to share with you in the coming weeks, but this one is probably the one I make the most. It is a good old-fashioned vegetable soup, and if you're here at my house Sunday evenings, you're going to be able to get some of it because I make it for the week every Sunday because it's a great lunch recipe as well, or you can eat it up on any sort of fall, cool, or winter night. All right, so let's get started. I have here a couple of glugs, probably 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil heating. I probably had it going for too long already, so let's start with our ingredients. Basically, I've done a lot of prep work and we'll go ingredient by ingredient. We're gonna start with, of course, some white, yellow onion, whichever one you wanna use. This is actually half of one, which is what I usually use, a lot of onions. So you don't have to use quite this much if you don't want. I just had a really large onion and I like onions. So we're gonna put it in, it's probably gonna sizzle. Yeah, so it's up a little bit too warm, a little too hot. We're gonna go with it. All right, of course, we know sort of the triple threat that we add to almost every soup, right? Also, along with the onions, we're gonna go with carrot and celery that I've chopped up. Put it right in, and we're gonna get that going for about 5 minutes or so, basically until they start to soften up. And I like to sort of season everything in layers along the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in some salt and pepper now. I'm gonna put in more seasoning throughout the process here. So there's some pepper. I'm gonna put in some salt and then keep stirring it up and getting this going until these are softened. And as I mentioned, sort of the thing that'll take you the longest is doing all of the prep work. This soup comes together in just about 30 minutes. So it's a very quick recipe once you get all this going. So we're gonna talk more about the next ingredients that go in after this gets softened. It's starting to smell pretty great in here. We've got the onion, the carrot, and the celery getting pretty softened at this point. So we're gonna add a couple of more things, and this is when the process really starts coming together. And this is also a good reason why you wanna have everything prepped and ready to go, because you don't want anything burning while you're trying to chop something else or drain the beans or chop up the potatoes. So get everything ready to go before you get started. So again, those are softened. Next, we're gonna put in a clove of garlic. I usually do 1 or 2. This one was pretty large, so I'm just doing 1. But you know what? If you love garlic, put way more in. And this is one of the things that we don't wanna let go for too long, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, because we do not want that garlic to burn. So I'm basically just gonna give it a couple of stirs here and get ready for my next thing I'm gonna be putting in so that this does not burn. And basically, when you start to smell that garlic, that's when you know it's time to move on so it doesn't get too overdone. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna put in is, let's see, I'm gonna go with the tomato paste. And this really starts to deepen up the flavor. So I'm going to squeeze in, I'm gonna eyeball it, at least a tablespoon, if not a little bit more. Just put it in there. I think that's about how much I want to put in. Again, I eyeball a lot of things, which is why it's sometimes hard to share a recipe, but you do you when you're putting it together. Along with the tomato paste, I'm gonna do a sprinkling of Italian seasoning. I'm gonna say that's 1 teaspoon. You can put in a little more, a little less, depending on what you like. And then we want to stir this all up so that it all comes together. And we want to cook down that tomato paste for just a minute or 2 before we add the other things to it. And this is when we're going to start adding more liquid and some more vegetables. Okay, stand by. While this is all coming together, I'm gonna add 1 more seasoning that I almost forgot. You do not have to add this if you do not like spice. I do. So I'm gonna add some red pepper flakes and stir those in as well. I'm gonna add 1 more thing later to add some spice as well. It's an ingredient you've probably seen me use before, but again, it's gonna be optional. The flavors are developing nicely. Again, it smells really great in here right now. So we're gonna move on to the next steps here. What we're gonna do is start adding some liquid and then the beans and potatoes. So I just have a can of tomato sauce. If you'd like, you can use diced tomatoes. I just don't love chunks of tomatoes in my soup. Don't ask me why. I know it probably makes no sense, but you do you. All right, I'm gonna add this in. And usually if you add in a can of tomato sauce, you'll see that it's still sort of in the can. I don't like to let that go to waste. So I usually just maybe fill it with about a half cup of water as I step over here and then kind of swirl it around and add that in as well. There we go. And then to that, well, I'm gonna stir this up for just a moment. All right, and to that, I'm going to add 1 russet potato I've chopped up. It was a pretty large one. I've chopped it into tiny bite-sized pieces because you want everything to be about the same size. So I kind of thought about, okay, how big is a bean? Here you go. I'm gonna put in that potato. And then speaking of the beans, I have 1 can of red kidney beans, dark red, you can use light red as well, and then 1 can of cannellini beans, which is just about like a white kidney bean. I've rinsed them and drained them, put them in here so that I can easily pour them in. Great. We've got those in there. You can hear everything is cooking. Stir it up. Now you're probably thinking, this is not enough liquid. That's because we're gonna add some broth. Now here you can add whatever kind of broth you want. I'm making vegetable soup, so I'm gonna add low sodium vegetable broth because I wanna be able to control the salt content and the spices, but use whatever you have. If you wanna use chicken broth, great, add some more flavor. Hey, I mean, you could even probably use beef broth. I've never tried it, but why not? All right, so this is just, let's see, 32 ounces. I think it's 4 quarts each. I'm gonna put all of that in. And this I also sort of eyeball. If you like a sort of brothier soup, you're gonna wanna put in all 2 of them. Sometimes I don't want that much, so I'm only gonna put in about 1.5. I might decide to add more after I watch it cook down. But I'm gonna put in about 1.5 for now. Okay, I'm gonna stir this up and then add one thing before we get it cooking on high to bring to a boil. See, once I stir it, I don't know if you can see, I definitely see all of the vegetables. So that makes me think I actually wanna add more broth. See, this is an eyeballing thing. All right, there we go. And then one thing that I like to add as well is a bay leaf. Sometimes I'll throw in 1 or 2 if it's a really small one. Let's see if I can get it out here. They're stuck in my little jar. Okay, well, there's 1. Great. Now what we're gonna do is bring it to a boil. As soon as you bring it to a boil, we're gonna bring it back down, cover it, and cook it for about 20 minutes, and then we're basically done. I just add a little finishing touch at the end, but this is how easy it comes together. As I mentioned before, basically the time that it takes you to do the prep work is why it takes a little longer than 30 minutes to make this soup, but I'm gonna crank it up to max, get it boiling, and then we'll move on. Okay, you can probably see that it is finally boiling, so I'm gonna crank it way down, give it a stir, put on the lid, and then let it go for about 20 minutes or so. Basically until the vegetables, particularly the potatoes and the carrots, get as soft as you like them, and that can be a matter of preference. So keep it going for about 20 minutes or so, but give it a taste. Obviously blow on it, because it's gonna be very, very hot, and then I'll add a couple of finishing touches. We're gonna take the lid off. It's been simmering for a bit, and so I wanna add in the last couple of things. Again, this part is optional. You've seen me with this favorite ingredient. It's the Calabrian chili paste. I'm gonna add in about a spoonful. This stuff is potent, so be careful. If you don't like spice at all, do not add it in. Even if you do like spice, be careful. So I'm going to add in a spoonful and stir it in. And then the other thing I like to add, and I have just found that this makes every soup just better, because you always need a little acid, right? And so what I like to do is just take a lemon. Sometimes I'll do half a lemon, sometimes I'll do a whole lemon. And you wanna do this at the end of the cooking process and just squeeze it right in there. And that just really gives it a brightness that you won't get without it. So I'm just gonna start with the half a lemon there. I'll probably add some more salt and pepper to taste, but this is basically done now. And you can sort of leave it on the stove on a low simmer, a low heat for kind of as long as you want until everything gets cooked. And then you're ready to go for dinner, or you're ready to pack it up like I do in multiple little containers and have it for lunch. So let's see what the final product looks like. I managed to fish out one of the bay leaves, by the way, but I couldn't find the other one yet, so I'm gonna be aware of that as I'm scooping this out. All right, I'm gonna put this here so you can see all of the nice veggies, so I'm gonna get a lot of the broth now. There we go. It smells fantastic, looks great. This is so yummy and cozy on a nice, cool fall day, of course, through the winter and beyond as well. If you would like this recipe, you can go online to WBIR.com.